Welcome, everybody, to After Hours. Garrett, Jamie, Craig, the whole gang is here today to cover this preseason loss to the Rams. Chargers fall 13-9. Cannot get it in the end zone again for the second week in a row. So let's just go ahead and talk about quarterback play, because that feels like the biggest issue right now. We saw Easton Stick for a half. We saw the newly acquired Luis Perez for a half. Didn't see any Max Duggan, thankfully. I don't know if we would have been able to take that, but let's get your thoughts early on first, because there are, I know we're going to start off a little harsh here, but it does get better. There were a lot of bright spots in this game, so let's just start off. We'll just get it off because everybody's talking about quarterback play. Let's talk about Easton Stick. Craig, what were your feelings about the first half with Stick at quarterback?
Yeah, I'll set it off. So let's just start here. The Chargers ended the first half up 3 while being down 0-2 in the turnover battle, right? Both turnovers coming by way of a one Easton Stick. My question is, how do you justify keeping a QB you have to circumvent? I have no explanation for any of this at this point. You're talking about a guy that's in year 4 who still hasn't figured it out. I get it, changing systems, having to learn new schemes, totally understand. How does a dude that's been on the team less than 2 weeks come in and seem like he's much more poised and confident in playing the position than you do? So I'm not going to sit here and just layer it on, Stick, because there's enough of that to go around. Just saying it. It's time for the experiment to end. It's probably a year too late. Thank you for what you did last year, ending it, the season, making it competitive, keeping the Chargers in top 5 position to get a really solid pick. Thank you for that. Your services are no longer needed. Hopefully whatever you have lined up next works out for you, because I don't think QB in the NFL is a thing for you, dude. But other than that, I just don't understand how you can consistently go out there, practice week to week, and show basically no improvement whatsoever. The mechanics are still sloppy. The footwork is horrendous. You're missing wide open wide receivers, and more often than not, for every 1 or 2 good plays you make, there's probably a turnover looming around the corner. So hopefully, if they decide to keep him, you never have to see him take a live snap in a real game that counts, because if they do, that running game better be elite, like all-time elite, because if he has to throw the ball more than 10 to 15 times, you're screwed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he gets in the game, then he's captain of the tank, which he did a admirable job of last year. If he's injured, then forget it. We're all on top 5 pick. And so thank you for your service apart that tankathon. But like Craig says, your service is no longer needed. And by the way, we saw 3 quarterbacks that have no business playing in the NFL today. The fact that we had to go with Stenson Bennett, Easton Stick, and Luis Perez. I mean, they were all bad. And the beginning of the game felt like what you do with a UDFA and or like a first-time rookie, where you get them in rhythm, where you have a quick hitter to Darius Davis, and then you hit that quick little open swing pass to Jarrett Patterson to set up kind of a 3rd and short, so you can get them in rhythm a little bit. And this is a man that's been in the NFL way too long to be kind of coddling him like they were today. But they got him a 3rd and short. He almost threw an interception on that same drive where he's double clutching. We saw him miss QJ deep down the field on a beautiful double move by QJ. I know he got grabbed a little bit, but missed him by 5 to 10 yards. Fumbled at the goal line. He threw a pick in which Fehoko settled in his zone, is no longer a moving target, and then threw it over his
threw it behind him.
Yeah, somehow threw behind a stationary wide receiver, which is, God, that's hard. he almost fumbled again on that 4th and short. Luckily, he got bailed out by that false start. But
yeah,
thank
you, the
one thing he does do well is he did nice on the option plays. We know he can run when he uses his legs. He's very effective. But anything outside of that, he did. I'll give him credit for a beautiful little timing route to McConkey. That was a great little 1-2 from Easton Stick to McConkey. And also, he took a hit, I think it was in the second quarter, and delivered it to Isaiah Spiller, where he hung in long enough for Spiller to leak out of the backfield, hit him. Spiller made some moves, got him in the red zone. Those were kind of his 2 shining plays to me, outside of the option run looks. But I mean, I posted a picture of one of his moves where he's got a pocket that he could basically set up camp in, roast some marshmallows, set up a campfire, douse it, sleep in a sleeping bag, come out the next day and still complete a pass. And he evacuated the pocket where the offensive line did a great job giving him a lot of space, rolled out, and then threw it incompletion. So the timing's off, the footwork's off, the arm has still not improved, and the IQ is just not there. He can run it with his legs, but that's all he's got at this point. And right now, there's a quarterback problem outside of Justin Herbert now.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to give them credit for trying to get him in rhythm and trying to do things to help him. You know, you say you shouldn't have to coddle a guy, but he is still a backup quarterback. He hasn't played a ton of snaps. So doing things like that.
He got starter snaps last year. What are we talking
Before
about?
that, he hadn't had a whole lot of snaps, though. I mean, he's had, 6 games worth of snaps or something? I'm just saying.
Full NFL. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
It's not like he's started, 50 games in the NFL. Doing things to help him get into rhythm is not a problem. It's what they should have done last week so they can evaluate him a little bit better. They did it this week, so they at least adjusted their game plan around him, which is a positive. But I think with him, what you still see is the eyes are still like darting around when he's in the pocket. He's not going through his progressions. He's just freaking out. There's no calm, no poise, no presence in the pocket. He's just staring down his number one receiver. And if he's not open, he's either forcing it or he's running. At least this week he ran a little bit more. But overall, I mean, Stick was brutal. He made the one good timing pass to McConkey. There was another pass to Fehoko that he made a good throw on. Then he follows up right away with the overthrow, throwing it behind Fehoko after he'd already cut his route off and sat down in the middle of right in between the hashes, like right in front of him. It's exactly the way they were drawing up plays for Lamar Jackson early in his career in Baltimore, where it was like, let's just get somebody right in front of him where he can't possibly miss the throw, and then we'll make an easy target, and somehow he still missed him. And you've got the broadcast team saying, well, he really should have reset his feet. Dude, it's a 5-yard curl in the middle of the field. If an NFL quarterback can't make that throw without setting his feet, he should not be an NFL quarterback. So there's all kinds of problems with what Stick did. There's not a whole lot of positives. I mean, at one point, he had completed 3 passes for 12 yards and had not completed a pass beyond the sticks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was at the end of the first quarter. Or I'm sorry, a pass beyond the line of scrimmage, not beyond the sticks, beyond the line of scrimmage. And that was at the end of the first quarter. They don't trust him to push the ball down the field. They can't trust him to complete swing passes. I mean, he had a stretch in the first quarter, I think it was, where he overthrew a screen pass to Darius Davis, short hopped a 5-yard out, and then overthrew QJ on the deep ball on a double move in a string of 4 plays. And
he literally could have gotten Davis killed on that RPO screen. Yeah.
Yep.
The way he had to extend the corner actually let off of him. He could have destroyed Davis, broken ribs, the whole 9.
That ball was so far over his head, there was no chance of completing that throw. So we're seeing what we've come to expect. I know there are people who want Easton Stick, the above average backup NFL quarterback, to be a thing. It is not. We know what he is. We know who he is. And by the way, this is year 5, not year 4. This is year 5. He was a rookie in 2020. It's time to cut bait. We know what this is. We know where this is going. He's not going to win games for them if he has to play. At this point, he's nothing more than Herbert's, he's Herbert's pet. That's basically all he is at this point. There's nothing more to him. He doesn't offer any. They say he helps Herbert in the film room. I don't know how, because he can't see the field. So, yeah, it's bad. I thought Perez was better, though. I mean, Perez wasn't great, but when he can throw the ball in rhythm, like if he gets to the top of his drop, sets his feet, and the ball can come out, which I think you'd see more with the ones than you would with the 3s and 4s. He gets the ball out on time. He's pretty accurate. He can push the ball down the field a little bit. He's not super mobile, but he can extend plays with his legs a little bit. I'm not sure about the off-platform throws, but he's certainly better than Stick at this point. And I think you can see the coaches think that too, based on the way they're calling plays for him. Sorry, Craig, go ahead.
No, I was going to say first play third quarter, what do? My question was like, how are they going to start the half? It told me a whole lot about the level of confidence they have in these quarterbacks. First play was a play action pass to what was, I'm pretty sure it was, it was a comeback to QJ, who caught the ball with his hands. Perfect. Like, really nice route, got out of his break, came back, used his hands to catch the ball. The whole play was very, very nice. And I was making fun of people in Discord, laughing at myself a little bit too, because we got excited about what essentially amounts to a routine play for any other capable or decent offense in the NFL. But we saw what we haven't seen from the guy who's been the starter here throughout the preseason thus far. He hasn't shown the capability of making that basic play. And they came right out in the third quarter and allowed Perez to do his thing right out of the gate. And no, it wasn't a great overall performance by Perez, but you can see that he has some tools with regard to like timing and ball placement. I mean, he threw a couple hospital balls himself, but let's be honest, man, this is what is a USFL QB? Is that the league he was playing in? But I mean, so he's playing spring football with a bunch of guys that may never get a chance in the NFL and play well there. But NFL is, of course, a whole different ball game, whole different league. And he steps in and shows more confidence than Easton Stick. And like, he seems more capable, which is mind blowing to me. I don't understand that.
There's no fear. I think that's the big thing with him is he's not afraid to rip it, to let it go, you know, over the middle, down the field, whatever. He's going to take a shot down the field. And I think, you know, we're talking about a guy who's been in the system for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
So versus Stick, who's been in the league for 5 years. I just think, you know, he's never going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. But if you want somebody who can make a couple throws, make a play here and there, keep you in a game, maybe hope the running game and the defense wins the game, I think you got a better chance of that with Perez at this point than you do with Stick.
Yeah, and the chat, just a correction, Jay, was drafted in 19.
Oh, my bad. So you're 6.
Yeah. It's even worse.
Awesome.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, I think we do see a better version of this offense with Perez so far, and I think with another week under his belt, I wouldn't mind him starting next game. The problem I'm having at this point is, I mean, obviously they're not scoring, so it's not fun for us to watch, but also, like, I don't know how, as a coaching staff, you really get a grasp on your wide receiver room without seeing them in real game reps. I know you're going to see them in practice, and that's great, but I mean, for guys like Cornelius Johnson and Brendan Rice and even guys like Fehoko and Darius Davis, I mean, where do they fit? And if you're judging in the preseason, Fehoko might be like making his case now, but that's off of 2 catches now. I mean, we haven't seen like anybody really run away with any job because they haven't been given an opportunity. So as a coaching staff, you then have to, I guess, trust your process and what you see in practices and maybe even when you guys you practiced in training camp with the teams, but on the field in the preseason is when you're supposed to gauge, you know, how they do against NFL competition, even if it's against, you know, second or third string starters. You still have to get a gauge of what they're going to be like on the football field on Sundays, and I don't think you get that with Perez, with Stick, with Duggan, and for me, it's, I mean, they've just got a tough job now because you drafted 2 wide receivers in the 7th round, hoping you maybe get some out of it. And I mean, their targets have been pretty minimal so far through 2 games.
Yeah, it's really hard to evaluate these guys with the quarterback play right now. I mean, whether they're getting open or not, you can't get them the ball. So, yeah. And if the ball is going their way, usually it's in a window that they're unlikely to make a play in. It's just so tight and late and high and overthrown and behind them and all kinds of a mess. I think like I said, I think you can do a better job of evaluating these guys with Perez in there at this point than you can with Stick. But yeah, they've got to do something because they have to be able to get a look at these guys and figure out who's going to make the roster. Right now, if the plan is to carry 6 wide receivers, I mean, you have no idea what you're dealing with Fehoko, Rice, Cornelius Johnson, Jalen Johnson, Jalen Gill. Like, what are you? How are you making this decision outside of Gill having a couple nice returns and Fehoko making 1 or 2 nice catches and a tackle on special teams?
Yeah.
How are you making decisions at this point?
Yeah.
Look, like if I'm a Chargers wide receiver and this was like a different regime, say like the last one with Staley, because I wouldn't dare touch Harbaugh's metal. in this situation like this, but I'd like go on strike as long as Easton Stick is the quarterback, because I'm not going out there on the field and putting my life on the line to, again, just do cardio all game long and potentially risk having my body broken up because any ball that comes my way could be the last attempt that I ever make at catching a football. So just in general, and of course, saying that tongue in cheek, but yeah, you can't assess any of these wide receivers whatsoever. And you're talking about one more preseason game to try to figure out if these guys can go. And then you have to make a really, really tough decision about who to keep around. Like, what are you basing it off of? You can watch film and look at their route running prowess. And yeah, like you talk about Simi Fehoko and a couple of grabs that he had. Awesome. He's like the only wide receiver that Easton Stick has, like, I guess, somewhat of a rapport with. And it just kind of looks like he sees Simi and his eyes get big and he tries to give him the ball whenever he can. It's like one read and then fire drill. Either Fajoko's open or who knows what's going to happen next. But at the end of the day, all these wide receivers are being done a huge disservice, and I don't know how you decide who to keep.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys do next week? Last preseason game. You're starting Perez? Is that you guys are leaning?
At this point, I would lean heavily towards giving Perez at least 3 quarters and seeing as much of him as you can. Mm-hmm. Open up the playbook. Run as many of those wide receivers out there as you can. Well, maybe not the starters, but you're running Rice and Fehoko and Johnson and Johnston and some of those guys out there, and protect the guys you need. Protect the top 3 for sure. But open up the playbook, throw the ball down the field, see what he can do, see if you can generate some protection for him, get some momentum on offense. I mean, nothing's going to change with Stick from week to week. He is what he is at this point, and I don't think anybody really wants or needs to see extended snaps from Duggan. So if they're really considering a competition at QB2, then you got to have Perez out there for, I would say, a minimum of 3 quarters.
Yeah, I was going to say give him at least a half.
Well, if you're giving him a half, Harbaugh has determined, according to Devin Martin in his presser just now, that Stick will be starting week 3 of the preseason. So that means
I think I'm going to be busy next week, guys. I'm not sure if I'll be able to make the show
already.
Something just popped up. I promise you. Look at that. Calendar just started going off.
This is definitely a position I think when 53s start happening and they start making cuts, that you start looking at a more experienced quarterback to help you out in that QB2 room. There is one question. Twitter's been all over it. James asked us in the chat, TLR podcast, is Ryan Tannehill better even as gassed as he is? Would you guys entertain the idea of Ryan Tannehill as QB2?
No, man. He looked like he was seeing ghosts last year. I mean, I know Stick is bad, but Tannehill is, I think, cooked, like physically cooked. I don't know if his body can hold up, knee issues. I know he's been a starter, and I know there's some I guess a little bit of a draw there, but man, I don't know if his body can take it. I mean, maybe he starts for 1 game at most and that's it, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think people forget what Ryan Tannehill last looked like on a football field, and you're kind of in your mind thinking about what Ryan Tannehill used to be, or maybe his performance against the Chargers the last time you saw him. And keep in mind, basically every quarterback that could essentially throw the ball more than like 10 to 15 yards had that way with the Chargers defense. So let's not base it off of that. Ryan Tannehill is pretty much like, I'm calling him cooked. He's fried. He's like, he's out of here. Now, in comparison to an Easton Stick, if you told me I had to make a choice between the two, then I'm probably going with Ryan Tannehill, because I know that at one point in time, he's at least played decent football. And maybe he can summon that up for like potentially a game. Maybe he can like be terrible comparison. I'm thinking about Michael Jordan with the Wizards. I mean, he still played really good at that age. So really, really good. All right, scrap that. Let's not do that. But maybe he can pull it out of him for like 1 or 2 games if you needed it. But I don't trust Stick to play a solid half of football. So if I had to choose between the two, then I'd say give me Tannehill, but I wouldn't love it.
Ryan Tannehill is Wizards Jordan is the quote from this podcast for sure tomorrow. but I'm desperate. I mean, I'm not loving the long-term aspect of having Ryan Tannehill as QB2 throughout the season. I do like the idea of having him as the second quarterback in game 3 of a preseason game, hoping that the shell of Ryan Tannehill could at least muster enough to show you something in this wide receiver group against third, maybe even fourth string, because we're talking about the last game where you're talking about bottom of the roster guys that you hope that maybe because he is as cooked, fried, washed as he is, that maybe he can at least put it past a couple of, third and fourth string players who will be like CarMax employees the weekend after. So if we can get a Ryan Tannehill in there to at least show you something at the wide receiver room, I'm okay with it. But I mean, long term, I don't want Tannehill as the QB2 for the entire season.
I mean, hopefully he only sees the field for one game at most, if that. And if he is seeing the field, he's probably going to hand the ball off 20 to 25 times. So, I mean, who would you rather have taking the snap from under center and turning around and hand the ball off to Gus and J.K. Dobbins? Probably Tannehill, because he's used to taking the ball from under center and handing it off.
Well, at least he's proven
he does well.
At least he's proven he can take a snap from under center.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely right.
All right, you guys convinced me. It's all about Ryan Tannehill.
Yes,
go.
We did it. All right, perfect.
I performed my civic duty for the weekend, gentlemen. I feel really good about myself.
All right, we just did 21 minutes on Easton Stick. Can we talk about something positive?
No, I think we're good. Isn't that it? No. So we talked about Semi Fehoko. Let's talk about these wide receivers a little bit for the little that we got. We saw Fehoko. You mentioned the special teams tackle. Great, went low, flipped the dude on that return.
Mm-hmm.
A nice little diving grab in the second quarter. Got up, had the wherewithal to get the extra yards. We didn't get touchdown, and then he had a really big gainer right before halftime on that corner route. So probably the biggest highlight from the wide receiver room, if you're not, hyped up on the McConkey and QJ single catches. But I mean, Fehoko was nice.
Yeah, Fehoko played well. I would say, even though he didn't complete the catch by the letter of the law, I would say seeing QJ go up and catch the ball with his hands.
Oh, yeah.
And be physical on a poorly thrown ball. It's at least encouraging that you're seeing him, extend and try to make that play for his quarterback. Because I don't
really climb.
I don't know that he makes that play last year.
No, and he did.
Go ahead.
Sorry. But real quick, not only did he go up because it was late and high, but he turned his body away from the defender and tried to get his toes down, but he shoved out of bounds. But really nice body control there on the sideline too. Go ahead, Greg.
No, you basically covered it. I was saying, he really had to climb the ladder to go get that ball, and the fact that he very nearly got that second foot down tells me a whole lot about, number one, just his level of confidence to try to go up there and get it. He showed no hesitation whatsoever, and that's not a typical QJ thing. He didn't look squeamish at all, really, throughout the game in general, if we want to be honest. He was attacking the football with his hands, high pointing it, getting his hands away from his body. He looked like a guy who is ready to roll, and let's just see if he can continue this throughout, going into the regular season, should I say. But definitely want to give him props. Aside from the fact that he was playing with, like you said, a used car salesman at quarterback, but he did what he could, and got to give him a little bit of credit for that.
Yeah, and I thought McConkey looked pretty good. That little out route that he ran, I thought the ball was late, and I thought the corner was going to undercut it, and McConkey did a nice job to reel it in, and he even used a little burst to get a couple extra yards after the catch. So all good things to see there. Those are the things that you're looking for from him out of the slot in particular. Other than that, I mean, there really wasn't a whole lot to see from the wide receivers. Rice had, I think, one target, dropped it.
You hate that Cornelius Johnson's only target was the one he bobbled on a fourth down.
They also targeted him in the end zone.
Yeah.
And he almost
ran into
Mike Williams and paralyzed himself running.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, the one that hit his hands, he dropped. Yeah.
That was. I thought he probably should have caught that one.
He definitely should have.
Was not an easy catch, but it wasn't a terrible throw.
He shouldn't have had to bobble that one. I thought when it hit his hands, it was in position to be kind of corralled. But that extra just kind of tap of the ball going out of his hands, it made all the difference in the world because he wasn't that far away from the sideline, so he didn't have an opportunity to really pull it in and show full control of the ball with both feet down. Again, it wasn't the easiest of receptions, as Jamie mentioned, but for sure, you're an NFL wide receiver, man, you got to make that catch.
I actually thought he caught the ball. I thought his shin was down before he went out of bounds.
Okay. I guess I missed the replay. I didn't see that.
Because he got 2 toes as he was securing it, and then 1 foot came off the ground, and I think it was his left toe was down, and his shin came down, and I thought his shin was down in play before he went out of bounds.
I'm surprised they didn't look at that or at least challenge it.
I would have liked to see them challenge it just because why the hell not?
There's not been one challenge so far through these first 2 games by the Chargers, have there?
I can't remember if they did it last week.
So.
Definitely not today.
In a situation like that, you definitely throw the flag, I think.
4th down. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would. You can't take them with you. But I thought we saw some impressive play from the running backs. Of course, I'll let Craig talk about his boy, Garrett Patterson. I thought showed some wiggle today, and really, really impressive day from Kamani Vidal, man. Those first 2 runs where he was just going downhill, back to back, smash mouth, physical runs. He ran hard, 2 big gains, gets the first on the next carry. It was nice, and that offensive line was getting some real good push early on. Those starters really showed out and helped stick out as much as they possibly could, but they can't throw the ball for him. So that hurts them in that regard. But really good early on from Vidal. Once the second team offensive line got out there, the holes kind of closed up a little bit more. But going into the 4th quarter, we saw some very hard runs. We got 2 first downs from Vidal, and he did a really nice job of moving the chains late in that game.
Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Everybody hates Isaiah. It's got to be what's going on here because Spiller had 2 carries, 2 carries for 7 yards. He had 1 more carry than DJ Chark, technically because of that orbit screen that Chark caught behind the line of scrimmage, so it counted as a run. He literally on the stat sheet had 1 more carry than DJ Chark. Every other running back at least double that. So it's not like he wasn't successful. And shout out to Kamani Vidal because, like I said, going into this game, I felt like I was going to win one way or the other, being a big fan of Kamani Vidal. So he had 11 carries for like almost 50 yards, so almost 5 yards a pop. So he definitely showed out. Definite burst and decisiveness. I said he reminds me a little bit of Frank Gore with like that low center of gravity and like those really strong pistons as legs. The kid can play, and he showed it a little bit today. I mean, the preseason so far has been somewhat of a wash for him because he was dealing, well, as Jim Harbaugh would say, he was working through something. So you didn't really get to see him perform in the first game. And even when we went out to practice, he was working off to the side with trainers. So we didn't get an opportunity to see him perform then either. But when we're talking just the rest of the running backs, like Elijah Dotson, what more do we need to see from Elijah Dotson at this point? Do we think Elijah Dotson is a running back that's going to make this team now? And no disrespect to him at all. He showed himself to be a pretty decent back last year. But when you're looking at kind of like the big 3 or 4 names, he doesn't really come up. Garrett Patterson shows a little bit here and there. I'm not the biggest Patterson fan. I think he's a serviceable running back, but I think for what you need in this running back room, you have the type of power backs that can also give you a little bit more in the passing game outside of Patterson. I think he's a very limited athlete, low to the ground, short, and center of gravity. Got that. He can work in the passing game a bit, but he's not overly explosive. He's not going to do a whole lot for you in blitz pickup. The conversation needs to be about Isaiah Spiller and Kamani Vidal. They drafted Vidal in this regime. He's probably going to make the team. You saw them giving him like key carries late in the game, and Isaiah Spiller was virtually nowhere to be found. He showed himself to be showed himself to be a really good receiving back. He caught that Texas route or angle route, made a guy miss in the open field, showed a little bit of wiggle and burst. And every time he hands the ball off to him, even if he doesn't have perfect blocking, he'll find a way to get a couple of yards out of like nothing in front of him. So he has the vision to make that work. But for some reason, he cannot get in the mix of these running backs and consistently get more than like 2 to 3 carries. So I really don't know what the story is behind that. But again, hats off to Kamani Vidal. I think you're seeing the ascension of a player who's definitely going to be in the mix when the season starts in this rotation. And ultimately, I think he's going to have a really solid career going forward.
Yeah, I thought one of the big stories coming out of this game, aside from the quarterbacks, was I thought the running game kind of started to find a bit of an identity and find their footing. You could see last week, I thought, was pretty vanilla in terms of all the play calling. I just talked for like a minute.
No, we can still hear you.
No, we hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. We heard the expletive too.
Sorry. But this week, I thought the play calling, particularly in the running game, got a little bit more creative. You saw them pulling Pipkins and Alt quite a bit and running behind them on the left side. And it generated some pretty big holes. Alt was getting upfield quite a bit, getting to that second level and making some key blocks. And you saw Vidal take big time advantage of it. Spiller had a couple solid runs. He had that one catch that Craig mentioned. I feel like Spiller is a guy who he probably adds something to the room that some of these other guys don't, which is he's a very good receiver and he's good after the catch. We didn't really see them throw the ball to Vidal that much. I don't know how much they're going to throw the ball to Gus or JK for that matter. So if you're looking for a third down receiving kind of back, somebody who can contribute on special teams, Spiller might be that kind of guy. He got 5 carries last week. He got 2 carries this week. We'd like to see him get some more run next week just to see what he can do. See if they can give him 8 to 10 carries and see what he can do with that, like they did with Vidal this week. But yeah, I thought the running game looked really good. It was encouraging to see it kind of pick up steam as the game went on. They were able to get the passing game going in spots because the running game was effective. They were working in unison, which is something we haven't really seen from a Chargers offense in quite a while. So all positive things from a kind of game planning. They went from, I think, not really game planning, not really scheming for week 1 to it seemed like they kind of installed some of the offense that they're going to use during the regular season and schemed a little bit more this week, and it paid off. And hopefully we see more of that next week.
Yeah. Want to give, since we're just working on offense here, I thought the new tight end Tucker Fisk popped a little bit today. Kind of played in the backfield a little bit in that fullback role. He was a lead blocker in the backfield. He's primarily a tight end apparently, but with a couple days notice came in and was pretty nice early on to spring Vidal for a couple runs, helped Spiller out, and then was key towards the end of that game. And also Alex Leatherwood gets worse by the minute. He is no good and gave up the sack on Perez where he fumbled, almost gave up a second with Stick. He's no good. That whole favor he's gotten because of the high draft pick is all but gone. He is awful, and I do not enjoy watching him.
We talked about him last week where,
Did you?
I mean, he's bad, which you expect from a backup lineman who's moving and playing multiple positions.
Sure.
But it's not just bad. It's like he's not even getting his hands on people. He's popping straight up. It's like he's looking around trying to figure out who he's supposed to block. And then he's trailing whoever is about to hit the quarterback. There's just nothing. I don't know what they see in him. There's just nothing there. And you can say he's versatile. I guess he can play left tackle. He can play right tackle. I guess maybe technically he can play guard, but none of it's good.
Yeah, a master of none.
I mean, I can juggle, but not well.
He's versatile like Jeff Blum was versatile for the Padres.
But we made that reference, I feel like, a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
He should never play another snap of tackle. Let's just start there. He's a traffic cone, like Jamie mentioned. He doesn't use his hands, and he's always laid off the ball. It doesn't matter who you are on the edge. You're going to beat him off the snap. He has no reaction time. If you told him he could have, like, who was doing like the cheat off the ball thing last year that was never getting
Juwan Taylor,
you could give him that advantage and he'd still get beat.
He'd still
somehow manage to be late. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. When you see the snap of the ball, you can get almost a full 1 count before he takes a breath and then steps back. Yeah. And at this point, I don't understand how someone who, had that first round, I don't say pedigree, but I had my issues with him as a first rounder then. But that you can't put him in a position that requires a high level of athleticism, foot speed, and reaction. And they keep asking him to do it on a quarterback's blind side at that. That's sheer insanity. If you want to play him inside, allow him to just take up space and maybe be able to use some strength to keep guys at bay or maybe lean on people in the running game. I get that. But do not have him outside protecting your quarterback on the perimeter because, at some point someone's going to pay for it. And I guess they probably don't care very much about Stick anyway, or whoever's behind Herbert. But still, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Like Alex Leatherwood is a project that I mean, it's a failed project. I understand what people saw in him from like a size perspective, and he was an Alabama offensive lineman, and we know how the NFL feels about them, but not all of them pan out. As a matter of fact, quite a few don't. So yeah, Leatherwood, I guess, cool story that they signed him to see what they could do, but apparently even this coaching staff can't fix that.
Yeah, there's really no explanation for him continuing to be out there other than Jim Harbaugh is playing chess and he's trying to get Stick killed. That's the only viable explanation.
All right. You guys got anything else offensively before we move on to the other side of the ball?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. Then, Jamie, I'm going to let you start this off because you got a question from the chat. It said from Ryan, Jamie, you mentioned you were going to watch the D-line. How did you feel? Did it get any better?
I thought parts of the D-line got better. We saw the new defensive lineman, Tyler Tart, play.
Yep.
He had, I think,
in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, he played late. I think he had 2 or 3 tackles for loss, if I'm not mistaken.
At least 2.
Getting consistent penetration. Stepped up and played really well. I thought Scott Matlock popped a couple times, made a couple plays. I like Ford also either made a couple plays or made a couple plays possible. And I kind of like that rotation, that the 4-man rotation there of Matlock, Ford, Tito, and I don't and Tart. I was going to say Fox, but I don't like Fox as much inside unless he's rushing the passer. I'm not in love with him as a run stuffer. But I think the rotation got deeper, and I think we're starting to see the weak guys out. You know, I think it's pretty clear at this point that Christopher Hinton does not belong on this roster. Hopefully the coaching staff agrees. Gerard Clark is not making the most of his opportunities for the most part, although he did have a couple good plays where he penetrated and helped create run stuffs late in the game to give the Chargers the ball back. So kudos to him on that. Not seeing much from CJ Okoye, not seeing much outside of the fumble recovery from Michael Mason. So really, I think right now you've got kind of a 5-man group, and then we're seeing nothing out of Justin Aboybe, which is a little concerning 2 weeks into the preseason from a 4th-round pick that I think he has 1 tackle.
I don't think Aboybe played today.
Did he play?
He didn't suit up today.
I don't think he suited up.
Okay.
Played last week and had a tackle for loss. He did not suit up today.
Yeah.
So I think there are some signs of improvement. It seemed like, really, honestly, we kind of derided the trenches as a whole last week. Craig and I did. And I felt like we saw those guys kind of step up and kind of show some pride in what they were doing this week. And they played harder and played better. The offensive line, like Garrett mentioned, got a lot of surge. And I thought the defensive line in spots played pretty well. They're still pretty soft in the middle. They don't really have a true nose tackle. And I'm not a huge fan of those 2-man defensive tackle fronts when they go to nickel. But I think they've got some guys in there who can at least rotate and plug some gaps and maybe make the occasional play. No difference makers. They're probably still not going to get to the quarterback a whole lot from the inside, but better than it was last week.
I think Tyler Tart and Gerard Clark had back-to-back TFLs in the fourth quarter. Like that combination, when you know a team is running the ball, is probably what you want to have in. Tart gives the Chargers more of what I've been begging for, that interior disruption. Even though he doesn't necessarily get to the quarterback, he definitely affects not just the pocket, in pass rush situations, but also the run, as we saw today. As far as the rest of the interior defensive line went, it was pretty much hit or miss today, specifically like Scott Matlock and Chris Hinton, who like were being forced to do like the cha-cha slide off the line of scrimmage against the run. It was a little embarrassing, especially Chris Hinton. I have no idea why in a 3rd and 2 situation at the end of the game and I got to have it stop, you have Chris Hinton in as opposed to Tyler Tart. Blew my mind. I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, what could possibly go wrong here? And they run right through Hinton and seals the game. But yeah, on the interior, I don't think they're going to be anything special, but the rotation can be pretty decent. And I really like the way that they perform on 3rd and short when teams run the ball. I don't think there was a 3rd and short conversion when running the ball today. If I'm mistaken, if there was maybe like 1.
Well, there was at the end of the game.
No. Okay. Yeah.
The one at the end of the game.
Okay. Yeah. That one with Chris Hinton.
Yeah.
So For the most part, when they have to lock it down, and including in the red zone, they're a hard team to move the ball on. It's a little bit of that bend don't break. But I think the defense overall, when you get the starters in there, if you're talking about this combination of guys that are playing that really won't see the field or are more so rotational players, they have something to build with, because in key moments, specifically against the run, they figure it out on the interior when they have the right guys in. Where I question them is sort of on the edges. They seem to get weak and beat outside to the edges on third down when teams do convert. If they do in the run, there are opportunities there where the edge guys either crash down too hard or they just get blown off the ball, and they create a little bit of a lane for the running backs to get through. But overall, the interior defensive line play, like I said, wasn't anything to write home about. There were some splash plays here or there, but I think Teair Tart is going to be pretty big difference maker on his team in the rotation once the year gets rolling.
I mean, just the level up from a Christopher Hinton to a Teair Tart is massive for this defensive line, because they were missing it. About a couple days ago, we were talking about Hinton making the roster, Gerard Clark maybe being on the outside looking in, maybe he could squeak in there, but now they've got some beef in the middle with Teair Tart, which was an awesome signing, and I'm glad they got it, and I'm glad he got some play today. And man, he made the most of his opportunity. He only had like a handful of snaps and got a tackle for a loss, one at the line of scrimmage. It was huge. But so defensively, the defensive line. So you mentioned Scott Matlock there. Other than the one player where he was able to get vertical and he got in the backfield, and then Deion Henley came in and got that run stop, and they got a 3 and out. Was kind of quiet for the most part. But how about him coming in on goal line packages? Without McFadden in, there's some interesting pairings today. We saw Matlock on goal line situations twice. He was an eligible receiver at one point. And then we saw Quentin Johnston taking kickoff returns today, which I hadn't seen all camp long or heard about. And that was also interesting. But I thought Dean Leonard was probably the player of the game today. He was so impressive. Maybe his best game as a Charger. He made some really nice open field tackles, a couple pass breakups, forced a 3 and out. He also, there was the one where he kind of slipped and the guy got behind him. The ball was thrown a little bit short, gave up the catch. They tried to go right back to it. They were in the red zone, tried to do a fade in the end zone. Mm-hmm. Dean Leonard sniffed it out, incomplete, and then right after that got the interception in the end zone. He was awesome today. I thought the DBs played really strong today.
Yeah, second week in a row, the secondary as a whole really had played extremely well. You saw JT Woods make a tackle for loss in the running game. You saw Thomas Harper break up a pass. AJ Finley was in tight coverage a couple times. You mentioned Dean Leonard had a great game, and that interception he made in the end zone, I thought was really cool to see, because if you go back and watch that before the snap, he's giving hand signals with the defense. He knows what's coming, and he lets the receiver get by him, and he looks like he's creeping up on the underneath route. And then as soon as the ball goes up in the air, he backs up and jumps up and picks the ball. He baited that throw. He knew exactly what was coming. He could tell the play. That guy's been watching film, and he's been working hard on those kind of recognition skills. So kudos to him. He played a fantastic game. He was physical. Some of the last 2 weeks, he's tackled better than he has at any point in his career as a Charger, in my opinion. And now he's starting to get his head around. He's anticipating throws. He's in tight coverage. He looks like he's starting to ascend and may potentially work his way up the depth chart. So he looked really, really good.
Guess we're going to keep the Dean Leonard love going, because with regard to the secondary, that was the standout today above everyone else. Jamie talked about the INT. It was a great play. The one that impressed me even more was, and Garrett alluded to it also, the back shoulder throw that he broke up. Reason being is because he kept his eyes on the QB the entire time and stayed connected to the wide receiver and played flawless technique to break that up. That's teaching tape. When you're inside like that 5-yard window especially going into the end zone where they allow a little bit more contact. The fact that he kept his eyes squarely on the QB and was able to maintain like the feel for where the wide receiver was, just so he could gauge kind of, what kind of break he would have to make on the ball. He never lost sight of the QB or where the ball was going. He had a better opportunity on the ball than the wide receiver did. So yeah, that's someone who's not just studying tape, but is also like evolving as a player. You can see him really taking on to the position, and the getting the head around thing was always the issue. That's improving. The tackling is improving. So you can see why the last regime put him out there. They could see the athleticism, the ability. They just couldn't really get him to hone everything in. And now, again, you've got a capable coaching staff, and they're really kind of getting the guy to put it all together. So the Chargers, may potentially have a dude at some point. I mean, if you can keep this up, that secondary looks a little bit better than what you may have imagined. And if he can get in the mix, it answers some of the questions. And then you've got the younger guys that are still developing behind him. So I love what I saw from Dean Leonard, and hopefully it continues.
Speaking of dudes, I thought Tarheeb still had a great game today. He looks like a dude. They sent him on a blitz at one point on third down. He forced incompletion. He had that nice diving pass breakup and was really good in run support today. On that AJ Finley tackle for a loss, it was Gerard Clark getting upfield and vertical, and then it was Tarheeb still crashing down, blowing it up in front of the running back, and JT Woods cleaning it up. So I'm just so impressed with Leonard and Still today. I thought they played great. I know, this is preseason hype, but those two played great today. And they were my two favorite to watch, probably the two favorite to watch today. They played great.
I think you can mix Thomas Harper in there too, because he made a couple of nice plays as well, had a good pass breakup, had a couple physical tackles. He looks like he's working his way up the safety depth chart, because he was on the field. He was on the field ahead of Woods today.
He almost had a nice one-handed pick.
Yeah,
the ball got on him. He just couldn't corral it.
And he did a really good job of getting inside the receiver without fouling him. Like there was no PI. He cut in front of him, used that offhand to try to make the catch. It was a really nice play.
Yes. Thank you, Blazing Bolts. Appreciate it. And also, I want to tee you up a little bit, Craig, here, because it happened in text, but I want to do it here now. How about Henley getting some run today, huh? First, can you explain how the previous coaching staff decided they wanted to redshirt the rookie last year with
Kenneth Murray?
Yeah.
Kenneth Murray.
And walking Eric Kendricks.
Yeah, walking Eric Kendricks. Yeah. That's about what was going on when he was on the field. You're right.
Headman walking.
Oh boy, sundial. Deion Henley is a freak. As far as what who was that he laid into in the end zone? It was in PBU. Running back was staying in to protect, and Henley showed no regard for him. I think he went down after they made contact. Henley tried to run through his face. I don't remember what running back that was, but he went out for a couple of plays also.
Was Zach Evans?
It wasn't Evans.
Oh.
Can't remember who the other back was.
Scott.
It was Boston Scott. He ran through Boston Scott's face. Someone actually in the Discord put up exactly what I was verbalizing. Remember in Waterboy where Coach Klein was saying water sucks, and he envisioned Coach Klein's head on the player's body, and he destroys him. That's exactly what happened. I feel like he was thinking about Staley's face on his body and decided he was going to blow him up in the end zone. That's how it worked out. I'll take whatever your motivation comes from. That might be the chip on his shoulder the whole season. The dude is their best coverage linebacker by far. He shows a lot of confidence as a run defender. Sometimes he can be a little high. It bit him in the butt one time today where he went for a ride for 2 or 3 yards. He still made the play, but he just lost the leverage battle. But overall, he is their most explosive linebacker, and you can deploy him in almost every way that you can utilize a linebacker. When you think about what you can do with him, not just in coverage, but as a weapon, as a blitzer, you can open up a whole bevy of things with the secondary, like the second level players and guys in the secondary. You can really mix up your blitz packages, and I think you're going to see the defense get super creative as the season goes on. I have no idea how you make this guy ride the bench last year. It's beyond me. Every time he gets in, he flashes. It's almost like there was some sort of personal vendetta against him. Maybe it's like Isaiah Spiller syndrome. I don't know, something similar. I'm all about the conspiracy theories. But anyway, fantastic game today. It's going to be really nice again to see him transition it over into the regular season and get a full year of this, because I think people are he's going to become more of a household name throughout this year as long as he can stay healthy.
He had a beautiful pass breakup on that tight end.
Oh yeah, the way he closed on that ball beautifully.
Yeah, that's a man who looks comfortable in coverage. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, I think actually the Chargers coaches deserve a lot of credit for the work they're doing with the secondary and with the linebacker unit, because those are two groups that we talked about in particular going into the season where we were like, oh my God, these might be the worst groups in the NFL on paper. And now what we're seeing is everybody in that linebacker group made plays. I mean, Henley was great. Had a couple pass breakups, had a run stop. He flashed 3 or 4 times. He looked amazing. We saw Perriman make a run stop. We saw Shane Lee was all over the place. Quarterman had the strip and forced fumble in the fourth quarter. I mean, there were 4 or 5 linebackers who popped at least once or twice during the course of that game. And that is not a really good group on paper. So to be putting those guys out there and having them flash like that and make plays consistently as a unit, the second and third levels of that defense are really, really good. And if they can get the interior defensive line figured out with the edge play they have, it's just going to make that second and third level even better.
Mm-hmm.
This is all without Junior Colson, who apparently is already showing out in practice after just like a day or so. Maybe he gets a little burn next week. We'll see. But yeah, I think just the development of the second level guys in addition to the secondary, but specifically the linebacking core, because there were so many questions. There's not, other than Perriman, a really established guy in that unit. And these young guys are stepping on the field and gravitating toward this defense. And yeah, Shane Lee was another name that I made note of because, wow, just a little bit of everywhere. And it's one of those guys that they're probably going to have to try to sneak onto like the practice squad. But I wouldn't be surprised if they can't hold on to him and he ends up somewhere else, because I think there's something there with him. But like I said before, once Colson steps on the field and you have like that really nice 3-man rotation with Henley, and Perriman, again, you've got a wide receiver for like every season. Colson's like the combination of the two, the bigger body who can cover in the passing game and can sideline to sideline and come downhill against the run. Perriman's the thumper, and Henley's more of your coverage guy, but he's no slouch in the run game either. So linebacking core might end up being much better than what people thought.
How many linebackers did they keep last year? Granted, it's a different regime, but 6. I want to say they kept 6 the last 2 years.
I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Yeah, not 100% sure off the top of my head.
While Garrett looks at that, I'm just looking at the linebacker room, and I'm looking at, we know Perriman's going to make it. We know Colson's going to make it. We know Neiman's going to make it, and we know Henley's going to make it. But if they keep 5 or 6 guys, is there really another linebacker on that roster who's keeping Shane Lee from making it?
Did you mention Troy Dye?
I did not mention Troy Dye. So that's 5. If they keep 6,
which is what they kept last year.
Which is, I think they kept 6 the last 2 years, maybe the last 3.
Do you want these names?
I don't care about the names.
Okay.
Let's
just say it ends.
Those days are over.
It ends with a Tanner Muse, if you remember.
But if Dye and Lee can show that they can contribute heavily on special teams and be really valuable there, because that's what guys got. That's what got guys like Agwamamiga and Neiman on the roster in the first place. If they can contribute on special teams, I don't think there's really anything keeping Lee from making it as a 6th linebacker if he keeps making plays all over the field the way he was today. I mean, we saw pass breakups, we saw a run stuff on the goal line. He was everywhere, and he was flying around like his hair was on fire.
I guess the only other person, and University of Miami Hurricanes representative Shaq Quarterman, if he's able to stick around, I guess that would be the end of the roster guy that he would be in competition with. But I don't think Shaq offers you very much on special teams either. He's a bigger body dude, better against the run. I mean, I know that they just brought him in, but that's probably his closest competition for that last spot. And
they kept 5 the year before, Jamie.
Did they?
In 2022, yeah. And if you guys got any questions, put them in the chat now, because we'll start covering those. Let's. The first one here is from Adam C. Guys, how'd you feel Joe Alt looked today?
I thought he looked really good, particularly in the running game. I mentioned earlier he was they were moving him around quite a bit. Like they were pulling him to the left side. We saw them kind of scheme up some more creative running plays, and he was killing people at the second level. He looked really good on the move, athletic, fluid, able to change directions. That tandem of him and Pipkins pulling from right to left looks like it could pack a pretty serious punch for this running game moving forward.
I think he stacked another very good game on top of what was a good game last week. He just keeps building. And I'm blown away every week by a dude that's 6'9" that gets the pad level that he does. People that tall aren't supposed to be able to bend that well and show that type of flexibility. When he's in pass sets, like he was really good in the running game, but I'm super impressed by his pass sets and how fast his feet are. Last week, even going back to that, I didn't mention it. He pulled off this combo block that I didn't know he was athletic enough to do. He started off on a double team and then climbed to the next level. And I think he caught a linebacker and opened up a hole for that might have been Stick, who got off like a nice 10 to 15 yard run. But this week, it's just you don't hear anything about him. And that's the sign of a really good offensive lineman. I think he had one false start today. That was like the only time I heard his name. So I'll have to go back and watch the game overall. But from what I did see from the couple of plays that I was watching him, he looks like he's ready to roll now. And again, this is a guy that I said before, I didn't think he was going to have as hard of a time adjusting to right tackle because he technically didn't start playing left tackle until he got to Notre Dame. He was a tight end and a quarterback before that. So he's a really athletic kid. He doesn't really or hadn't had a home for more than 3 years at one position anyway. So now he's just learning the next and building upon his tool belt. So I think he can play either side. He's going to be your right tackle. That's where he's going to live. But if he can be that good in the running game, in addition to a pass protector, the Chargers offense can reach a whole nother level, not just in the passing game. Of course, you want to have those bookend tackles. There's a lot you can do on the perimeter in the run game with two tackles like that. And I think the fact that he's already making the strides that he is now is a bit surprising. But overall, I don't see really I don't have any real complaints about his game. And we're talking about a rookie who's only 2 games in.
Yeah, we saw, outside of the false start, he was really good today. For me today, just watching Alt as much as I tried to during the game live and not being able to see it from multiple angles, whatever, but the way in which he was able to anchor down all day today was so impressive. I couldn't count the amount of times he was almost like at a 45-degree angle where his feet are like supplanted in the grass and the edge rusher is getting no push on him, and he's just using his leverage to keep him just at a standstill. I couldn't count how many times he did that today. It's just the not only the strength, but able to sit down and anchor and not let those edge rushers get any push on him. It was really, really impressive today. And like Craig was kind of mentioning today, it feels like he's ready to start week 1 like tomorrow. He is pretty much there. Yeah,
he's been really good.
Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack every day will do that for you.
Help push you a little bit, huh? Junius, did Junior Colson play? Colson didn't play, right? No, he did not. No. Nothing from Junior Colson. What'd you guys think about Brash today?
Pretty quiet.
I think he only had a tackle.
There wasn't a whole lot, and that was one of the things I noticed. There wasn't a whole lot of edge pressure today.
No,
like in general.
Nope.
There wasn't a lot of pressure, period.
Yeah. Except for some like delayed corner blitzes, some DB
from
blitzes.
The slot,
they got some slot blitzes going that helped, but the interior guys weren't doing much, and the edge guys did next to nothing all day long. Really, the only time you noticed the edge guys was when they were getting sucked inside on the running play and getting beat to the edge.
Tremont Morris Brash had 1 tackle today, so no flashes from Tremont. J. Alex Keith says Ravens kept 7 linebackers last year, just for reference. Interesting little note. Majub003 didn't get to see the game. Did Brendan Rice or QJ show out today? Well, no catches for Rice and 1 for QJ, and we talked a little bit about it.
Well, he didn't. It wasn't a catch.
Well, the stat sheet doesn't show the type of game that QJ had overall. I don't think. I think he
had a catch.
Than what you see.
It didn't count as a catch.
No, he had 1 catch.
No, the first catch of
the third quarter.
Of the third quarter.
Okay. I missed that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he ran a couple good routes and played well and played physical, which is encouraging.
The conversation about the number of linebackers is interesting because when I think about the Ravens defense, kind of the bedrocks of their defense, and I mean, they have great defensive linemen specifically on the interior, but it's linebackers and safeties. The corners play a significant role, but they're not as big of a deal on defense as I think maybe in the Staley regime. The Ravens defense is more so predicated upon having like that really good third safety who's essentially a starter and a really strong linebacking unit. And typically both linebackers are decent athletes. So it kind of makes sense when you think of like Henley and Colson together, kind of fit that mold.
Mm. Blaze and Bolts, again, thanks for the donation. Should we sign a free agent QB2 or trade for one? I'm saying 53 cuts is when you. I don't think you're. It's too late now.
You're waiting for cuts for sure. See what pops up.
And it also tells you a lot about how they feel with regards to Herbert's injury. They don't seem super concerned about it because they weren't in a rush to go get like a high quality QB2. So they'll probably wait to see what shakes from cuts.
Good to see Herbert out of the boot, taking some flat-footed snaps and throws before the game today. That's an encouraging sign.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Don't forget to follow us over on Twitter. And don't forget, we're now the newly verified Lightning Round podcast on X. So go over and check out that cool new nifty blue check mark. All thanks to you guys for helping us out. You see you can follow Craig, top_flight3. I'm at Garrett, Jamie at Lightning_round. Join the Patreon. Go get in that Discord. It's really popping off this preseason in those chats. So go over there, do that. Thank you so much. We will see you next week. And thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Salute.